Loryn Martini is with us today on the Canvas live stream, and she is a learning consultant with OCPS, and she's also with our learning services department, very near and dear to my heart. We're matching today. We've got the matching t-shirts on, kind of. She went lowercase Canvas, I went uppercase Canvas, which is a lot of fun. We're very excited because Loryn loves new quizzes. If I judge by the title of today's session, right? You're a big quiz fan.
I do. Yeah, I actually, I really love the features and capabilities that new quizzes has to offer. And I am really excited to see everything else that we have rolling out in the next 14 to 15 months before this becomes kind of our main quiz platform.
Yeah. And it's a hot topic. I think every time we talk about some of the assessment tools or the things that we have built in to our platform, quizzes is right there at the top of the lists. And already people are filtering in to the comments and into the live stream. If you haven't had a chance yet, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit your little heart. That just lets all the people in your circles know that we are doing a live stream about quizzes, and we want them to be a part of this because this is a huge session and I'm fired up. You know, we want other people to get noticed on the quizzes piece because it is something that we get a lot of questions about. And there might be like a East Side, West Side gang fight between new quizzes and old quizzes at some point. But we know that this would be a great resource. So continue to subscribe, continue to hit like, share it with those people in your circles. Just a quick share, real quick. We want to make sure also that anything that we include today, we'll put in the links in the comment sections or in the description of these videos when they're finished. So that's another thing that we're trying to add. As always, do not hesitate in our live stream today to ask questions through the comment section. Let us know where you're from, where you're at, what makes Canvas special, the crazy things that you're doing with Canvas quizzes. We love all of those things because it gives us lots of content to build off of during the session. You never know when your quiz or question might pop up in today's session. Loryn, obviously you can tell I'm a little fired up about Canvas quizzes. I don't know a whole lot of other learning platforms or systems that go to this amount of trouble to get excited about a quiz or assessment platform, but I'm here. So we're going to give Loryn a little bit of time here. I'm fired up. I'm going to kind of go back into the background, into the shadows as they call it. And we're going to learn about new quizzes today from our good friend, Loryn Martini, learning consultant with OCPS. Take it away.
Thank you very much, Eddie. I'm really excited to be joining y'all today to talk about new quizzes. It is one of our kind of ever-changing aspects of Canvas. It's something we are really proud of, but also continually making improvements to. So we're going to talk today mostly about the basics in case you have never used it or in case maybe you've just tried one or two of the new question types. And then I'm also going to talk to you about the benefits of using it. So in addition to the fact that currently our roadmap suggests that we are going to be doing new quizzes and no longer old quizzes in about 2022. That is currently our calendar, July 2022 for every region except Asia Pacific, and that's going to be December 2022. You've got about 15 months before new quizzes really becomes your kind of main assessment platform, and that means we have 15 months to make some really priority enhancements to make sure it is not only functioning similar to how classic quizzes is functioning, but it's functioning better. So that's always our goal, is to keep improving upon what we have. So you will see a few new features that we've built out in the past few months, in addition to, I'm going to kind of talk about what's coming down the pipeline as well. So for today, we're going to talk about what does new quizzes look like. How do I build or migrate to new quizzes? And that migration question is one of my favorites because it's such a simple answer and it will save you so much time. And then we're going to look at the 4 kind of different question types. There are more than 4 ways that the similar questions to classic quizzes interact in new quizzes, different ways to grade, different ways to assign partial credit, etc. But there really are 4 main question types that have really, really improved new quizzes in my opinion. And then we'll look at the benefits of new quizzes and talk about what's happening next. So first things first, what do my images mean? This is one of the first questions I get when I ask teachers. If they ask me, well, what about on quizzes? Can I do this? My first question is always, are you working in classic or are you working in new quizzes? And a lot of the times they know, but oftentimes they say, I don't know. It's a green rocket ship. It's a gray rocket ship. So I want to just talk about what these icons mean. So first things first, we have this published classic quiz. You'll notice that we have either a green or a gray option. The colors will tell you if the quiz is published or not. Over on the right-hand side, further over, you'd be able to see that circle with the check mark. But when you're just looking on the left-hand side and reading the quizzes, you'll be able to see that both of these quizzes, my citation formatting quiz and my quiz all question types, these are both green, meaning they're published. So that is all that the green versus gray means. Now, the next part is, how do I know if it's a classic or a new quiz? Well, primarily by whether or not it's filled in. So your classic quizzes will be outlines, whether they are green or gray, and your new quizzes will actually be filled in rocket ships, again, whether they are green or gray. So this would be a published classic, this would be a published new, and then these would be unpublished classic and unpublished new. So just when you're reading your icons, that's a really quick and easy way to kind of figure out what it is you're currently working in, and also to kind of push yourself to maybe try something different. So we are going to I'm going to jump out and take you through what new quizzes look like. And we're going to actually pretend to be one of my students. I want you to see, and don't worry, Ron Weasley is only a student in my dreams. I'm going to show you kind of what it looks like from a student's point of view. So let me jump
Loryn,
into...
Loryn, while you're jumping through that, I'd just like to say a couple things. We have a ton of people joining us today. This live stream, this live stream's got juice. I just text somebody. Lots of
perfect. No pressure at all. Thanks, Addie.
That's okay. I knew you were a little nervous, so I was trying to get you over the hump. We have a ton of people joining from around the world: Canada, Peru. This is great, fantastic stuff already. I think there was probably a lot of people, either, if they're virtually, they're at home or they're in their classrooms, were screenshotting that last image that you shared of the classics and new quizzes. Even I have trouble. I need like a little cheat sheet that I could print off beside my monitor when I was creating quizzes and pivoting back and forth between, classic and new. It's fantastic. So keep it up. Keep up the good work. And as we get new comments, I'll pop in and throw them on the screen so people can know where everybody's from. Minnesota in the house. Keep it up, Loryn.
Perfect. Thank you, Eddie. So just so you're aware, I've jumped in and I'm acting as one of my students. So I do want you to see what the new quizzes will look like from the student's point of view, because at the end of the day, pedagogically, we're really trying to do everything we can to enhance the experience of the student, while also on the other side, not making, hours and hours of more work for ourselves. So we do need to find that nice balance. And I want to show you how that balance works on the student end. So you'll see that for new quizzes, it does populate in their to-do list. So it'll show up, instead of having that rocket ship, it actually is going to be an assignment for them in their to-do list. So they won't have to dig around. It will populate in their to-do list for them. Now, as a student, if I jump in, I'm automatically going to be able to see the due date and how many points it's worth. And if I go into the quiz, it's going to show me, well, this might be past due, but I have a time limit. And I can jump into the quiz and I can begin it. It'll take just a moment to load. It will always keep my clock at the top of the screen for me, so I never have to worry about trying to figure out where my timer is. And then you can go through and we can kind of talk about some of these questions. Now, from a student's point of view, what's really great is this pin. So if a student doesn't know the answer to a question, they can pin the question. And before they submit, the submit button will actually warn them and say, hey, you've got some questions that you pinned or maybe wanted to come back to. If they have any blanks, it will also alert them to that. So before they submit, it'll say, just wanted to verify you're ready to submit with either a pinned question or with any blanks. It's a really great reminder for the students. So this first question type that I'd like to show you is really targeted more towards like your K2 with your rising readers, where you may have an image and then you may be asking the students to identify what letter it is. We call this question a hotspot. And what's really great about this is that the student just goes down and realizes this is a cat. It begins with C, and he clicks on the C. Now, as the teacher, you have it set up where anywhere on this green tile is a correct answer. This is a really, really great tool for things like identifying parts of the cell. You can do it, you'll see question number 2 for counting. Again, really great for K2. We're going to count the ducks, and then we're going to click on the number 3. So hotspot questions allow students to click anywhere in an image that you've uploaded. And as long as they click within the field that you've identified as a correct answer, it's going to automatically grade it as correct, which is really great for you as a teacher because auto grading just changes everything. So you can also see that we've got kind of these, we call them polygons, but these kind of oblong or irregular shapes. You can absolutely do that, whether it's with a map or the number 3. You don't have to just have a big circle where if they click out here, it's correct. They will have to click somewhere in the shape that you decide. And we also have the ability to just do circles. So ovals, circles, rectangles, whatever shape you need for the image that you're using. So we're going to talk more about how to build Hotspot, but that's what it looks like.
Sorry, Loryn, I'm going to pop in here because Hotspot is huge in any type of assessment that you're trying to. My example has always been I had a CTE teacher that taught construction trades, had a lot of issues with students that were consistently missing tools like go get me a hammer or go get me, I need a monkey wrench. Well, people don't, kids, they forget what that is, right? They've been shown it, they've been tested on it, but they need a little bit more remediation. So they would do almost like a bell ringer every day that had, a photo of all of the tools, and the student would have to click on and choose, each one of those, which is fantastic. Like the hotspot feature alone was the first one I started with when I showed new quizzes. I'm glad you're starting there as well. And it is the one that I think blows a lot of people away as an assessment tool that we provide. We did have a question come in from Facebook, and it was curious because it's more about the time remaining than the hotspots, but I love the hotspots. Sure. It says here, can you see the remaining time of students and moderate this quiz in new quizzes?
So I am actually going to take you through that moderate tab. You will be able to see how long it took and which students are still on it, and you'll be able to filter based on students that have taken it, students who are still on the quiz, and you can see through that. Definitely.
Perfect.
Yep. So we'll be coming there.
Jumping ahead of the game, but we're going.
I love too, Eddie, that you pointed out that new quizzes, it's not just, a high points or high stakes assessment. New quizzes can be a 0 grade. It can be a bell ringer. It can be an exit ticket. It can be a practice quiz. It can be whatever you want it to be. Just because it's titled new quiz doesn't necessarily mean that it has to take this huge impactful kind of grade point value from the students. So definitely a really great thing to point out with those bell ringers is it can be, 50 points. It can be 2 points. It can be a 0-point quiz or a practice quiz too. I love that you pointed that out. Thank you. So hotspot questions are one of my favorites. It's one of the new features of new quizzes. You'll see too, we still have our great questions that we have from classic quizzes. We do have our multiple choice. We have our true false. Now what's really cool is we can do different types of fill in the blank, where as a teacher, I've identified multiple possible correct answers for this. So the student could type in the number, the numeric one. They could type in ONE. They can type in a sent, right? If they're using the pronoun, the article. So they can pick any of those answers and you can identify what's correct. So this prevents you from having to go back and regrade it. If you have like that one student who typed in the numeric 1, but in classic quizzes, you can really only have one correct answer. Again, just really helpful with auto grading in terms of accepting multiple answers. And then the other type of fill in the blank is you can have multiple fill in the blanks with different answer types. So when you cross the street, you should look left, right, left. And the students can type in there and you can control whether or not you want to count it wrong due to spelling or capitalization. So again, a similar question type that we have in classic quizzes, but just real significant enhancements on how you, the teacher, are able to kind of automate some of your grading and some of the feedback that the students receive. You can also see that they can click multiples. So if there are multiple answers, instead of having to have a multiple choice where it's, A, B, C, and then A or B or A and C, they can actually just go ahead and click into those questions. Another really great one that I love that we've created is matching, where you can create whatever you need them to match, where they would typically on a worksheet draw a line. Now they're able to actually just have a drop down. And you'll notice too, what we're able to do is we can add, as the teacher, we can add these distractors, where there's only 3 options, but I have 6 choices. So I can add in some kind of wrong answers to maybe throw the students, depending on how nice you're feeling that day. So for this, we're just matching the office couple. So we're gonna match Holly and Michael. We're gonna match Jim and Pam, and then Dwight and Angela. But you'll notice too, that even though I've included Michael and Pam up here, it doesn't take it off of my options. So the students aren't necessarily crossing it off as they go. It'll still populate all of the possible questions. So my suggestion when we do matching is be aware of how many actual matching you're doing, as well as how many distractors you're throwing in. Because if they have 10 of these and it's not automatically removing Michael or Pam from a future one, it can get really distracting depending on the age level of your students as to how many times they're having to kind of question, wait, did I put Michael in there? Is Pam in there? So just be kind of aware of the amount of matches that you're doing. We also have another matching where you can do animals, again with distractors. You can do math problems or formula problems. So you can type out to the 100th what pi is. What's really cool about the formula option is that we may be seeing 4 here, but the student next to me may have 6 trucks, or the student next to him may have 12. It all depends on how you, the teacher, set it up, but you can actually include a variable formula and then decide what you want x to be between 1 and infinity. So it can have a range of different numbers for students. And again, it auto grades based on that variable. You can add in an essay question. And you can even include word count limits if you want a word count limit for some of your students. I know that I sometimes did. You can add in images where they can actually grab an image from the internet and load it into a quiz, or they can take a picture at home and they can upload it and then they can actually put it into the quiz for you. So finding 58 cents.
Loryn, we had a question come in on our YouTube
Sure.
channel. Hildy, which is one of the all-time greatest influencers for Canvas LMS. She is fantastic. She asks, I have a teacher who asked recently if there's a way to easily move classic question banks to new quizzes. So the classic question banks are a little bit of a different animal. I would love to approach that, have one more question type that I kind of want to show you with stimulus, and then Hildy, I will be right there with you on the kind of question types, if that's all right. So for the last question that I'm going to kind of show you is the stimulus. Now this is similar to hotspot. I mean, I go back and forth between which one's my favorite, between hotspot and stimulus question. I think as a former English teacher, this one sometimes takes the cake, but what you can actually do is you can attach, you can do an image, you can do a PNG, a JPEG, a GIF, you can do text, and a separate media upload, but you would have essentially a question on the left-hand side, and then instead of the students having to scroll down to see the 6 questions that you're asking about the same prompt or the same stimulus, you just scroll to the right. And everything on the left stays the same. So they never have to kind of move around. They have this, I call it anchored, but this is going to be anchored on the screen for them. And they're going to be able to move through the questions without losing that stimulus or that prompt. And then within that stimulus, you'll notice you can add any of the question types that you really want to into that stimulus. So we can do multiple choice, fill in the blank, drop downs, even an essay question, which is a really great feature. And then you can also do ordering. This would be essentially just putting it, you can do chronological order. This is great for like number lines, or even if you're working with like integers versus whole numbers versus fractions and decimals, but you pick how you want them to order it. And then they would be dragging and dropping those into the order that they think is correct. So that's what it looks like from a student's point of view. Again, that lovely timer, as well as kind of the pin are really great features. You can also build in calculators for them if you don't want them to have to do this by hand. So I can type in 180 times 4 and I can get my answer. Let me go back. And then I can type my answer in and it'll be submitted with everything else. So let me go ahead and stop acting as that user. And then Hildy, I want to approach what you're kind of talking about in terms of item banking and word or question banking, because those are 2 different things. And those are a little bit more advanced if we are using them. So if I jump back in, cool. You'll notice if I go to quizzes,
There's a really great feature where, again, since this is an outline, it's a classic quiz. This skinny snowman right here, this kebab as we call it, if you click there and you click migrate, it's going to populate it as a new quiz, just automatically. So you don't actually have to go in and recopy any of your questions. Now, where this gets a little bit tricky for right now is that item banking versus question banking. Because inside of quizzes, if you have question banks, those will come over to the quiz, but they are to the new quiz, but they aren't going to function the same way. What is going to happen is your item banks or your question banks will move over to the quiz, but then you would essentially need to go in and select which of those questions you would actually want to do. So when it comes to new quizzes and building out item and question banks, there is going to be kind of a preliminary rebuild, but you can actually bring them over and then you can copy and paste them into multiple questions and add them from there into a new question bank or into a new item bank. But it won't necessarily, if you have an like an item bank or a question bank in new quizzes, it just won't function the identical way in, if you have it in classic quizzes, it won't function the identical way in new quizzes. There is going to be some legwork. So Hildy, that's something I'm more than happy to reach out to you about, and we can kind of talk further in regards to, but it can happen. It just won't happen the same is kind of the short answer to that.
Yeah. And Loryn, I think a lot of people, again, we know that there is a lot of updates. I'm seeing a lot of questions come in the chat, and maybe we'll just kind of save some of them till the end and you can kind of answer them as we get there.
Sure.
But because I popping in and out, this is such an important topic. And I think people do get a little upset about like, well, it's not doing exactly what the old quizzes did, or I'm really more comfortable with the old quiz. But we do want to be clear, old quizzes or classic quizzes has a shelf life, correct? You did mention that at the beginning, maybe mention that again. Old classic quizzes will be gone at some point. So it's best to like start the migration now into some of that new content and new service. And as we know in Canvas, our engineers work really hard to make sure you never lose functionality, right? So, we hope that once that migration happens completely on our end, that you don't lose that functionality when it comes time to have, the full robust system of new quizzes. I don't think there's so much there that people are really going to kind of get upset about moving from one to the other, but it is enough to have that, audience of teachers and educators and administrators that are using this to really, say, well, I'm just more comfortable with the classic quiz.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. I think we all are, creatures of comfort, and on Eddie's point, there is kind of that shelf life of the classic quizzes. But from my understanding, what that means is more of you'll be able to still use your classic quiz for the time being, but we will no longer be kind of supporting any tech issues. We won't be updating. But the idea, at least as I've received it, has been that, for example, my classic quiz, like I could give this Act 5 vocab quiz for an extension of that July 2022, but I'm not going to be able to create, and this is where it gets tricky with the wording, new classic quizzes. So if I were to create a quiz, the only option would be our new quiz option, but you would still have accessibility to your old quizzes. And again, if you just if you click that skinny snowman on the right, you can migrate it. Now, if you are somebody who is kind of feeling like, just classic quizzes is my friend and I know it and it's going great, I would suggest maybe taking a quiz that you've already created and that you love from a classic quiz, migrating it into a new quiz, and kind of doing a trial run with it. See really on a quiz that you know and love what the differences really are. The other option is to do something that's no stakes. So do a 0 point or a 5 point bell ringer, do something small. And like you just saw, that quiz that I just showed you, it has every single question type. By no means is anybody expecting you to make every single quiz with every single question type. So maybe kind of pick hotspots. Maybe do a 3-question bell ringer with hotspot questions and just see how it goes. Pick something and kind of focus on it. Take it in manageable, what I call chunks. And then as you start feeling better with it, build upon those skills. So that would be just a kind of a way to kind of test out new quizzes as we do get towards that shelf life. So in terms of migrating quizzes, again, skinny snowman, and then we click migrate. Now, what I want to show you too is again, as Eddie and I have both mentioned, new quizzes, it It changes. It changes quickly sometimes. So one of the greatest things that came out in mid-March, in my opinion, is the ability, instead of, if you were building new quizzes over here in that global navigation for new quizzes, now you can just click directly into your module, jump to quiz, create a new quiz, and it's actually going to ask you, what do you want to create? So you can build your new quizzes now directly in the module without having to actually go in as the assignment, external tool, etc. It's going to automatically populate that for you. So if we were to build a quiz in here, we can drop it into our quiz folder. I can indent it if I want. And then once I actually load it, so you can see what it looks like as the teacher building. When you jump into the quiz, the first thing you're going to see is typically on classic quizzes, what we see at the very, very end, right? Like it's everything settings wise that we need. This is going to be the first thing you see. And this for me, when I was learning the difference, was kind of the thing I had to wrap my head around the most, was just the difference in order of how I set things up for my new quizzes. So again, you can edit the title. I always suggest giving it point value, even if you don't know how many points it's going to end up being. And the reason why is, as you saw, it auto-populates at 0. If for some reason you forget to change this point value and the students take it, it won't regrade for you. But if you have any value in there and you didn't, maybe say you just set a 10 as the reminder number, but really it ended up being a 20-point quiz, if you go back in here and change it, it can actually, it'll function differently than if it's 0. So I always suggest throwing any random point value. If you know it off the top of your head, great, enter it. If you don't quite know what that quiz is gonna look like yet, just throw a 10, a 15, a 20, 100, because then at least it'll be 100% or whatever you want to do as a placeholder. You can, again, choose your assignment type, how you want it to display, very similar to your classic quizzes. And then you don't have to do anything here. It's already set up as an external tool. You pick your due date. So maybe this is going to be due on Friday. You can make it available from and until. If you want it to be a pop quiz and you don't want your students to know, you can absolutely set it as a pop quiz to show right before class. Or if it's something more open-ended where they've got, like centers activities that week, so they've got Monday through Friday to work on it, you can adjust that availability for them as well. So when I click save and publish, and you have the option to save it without publishing. Now I can build my questions. That again was the hardest part for me, because I got down to save and I was like, but I haven't put any questions in there yet. So you do have to click that save button, and now you're able to actually build your questions. One thing that I also really love about new quizzes is when you build that question, say you did 5 questions, but you accidentally forgot to add in question number 3. Instead of having to add it all the way at the bottom and then trying to drag it and move it around like we do in classic quizzes, you can add in between questions wherever you want. So for me, that was just such an ease of use. So once you click that add question, you can pick your question types. And our community has how-to step-by-step guides on every single one of these question types. I wish we had an extra 2 hours so that I could go through how to do each one of them individually. But you can absolutely access the community and kind of look at how these are actually built so that they appear the way we saw in that student build. And then, hi, Eddie. I can see you, but I can't hear you.
Unmute your mic, dummy. Yeah, that happens, right? I do it all the time because I'm doing the chat and then I'm looking up links because we got a lot of questions in the chat. But you brought up a term that I think will be very helpful to some of the people in the chat today, the Canvas community. There are a number of documentations, and I just posted the link for the new quizzes timeline. So everybody was very, they asked questions like, oh, the date seems to change, or when does it end? When does it really end? And we do have documentation that shows exactly when that new quizzes is going to be gone forever, and kind of the timeline of what that looks like. So we've put that in there in the chat and those comments. So hopefully you guys had a chance to look that up. Also, I'm kind of digging in the community. Again, great resource for things like our Canvas release notes. There's a lot of questions specific to when will it get this, right? When will it get blank? And when will it have the ability to do this or have the ability to do that? So I think this is also a great opportunity. If there's a feature that you really love or that you really are passionate about it doing that it currently doesn't, you have the ability as a user to actually send that feedback to Canvas engineers. Trust me, they read it. Unfortunately, Loryn and I, a little bit higher up on the pay grade to be able to tell you what's coming and what's not coming and what will be available when. So Loryn, can you show really quick where they can go into that help menu on the Canvas global navigation, kind of throwing you for a loop here, but
Absolutely.
showing them where they can kind of submit an idea or submit a feature request that gets sent to our engineers, and then they compile those and then create kind of the next release based off of those things.
So some of, depending on the institution you're with or the school you're with, your navigation bar is going to look different. That's just going to be at an account level. So your navigation bar may not look like mine. Mine is through OCPS. So if you go to that help button at the bottom, you're going to see all these pop outs. You're going to be able to search the Canvas guide. You're going to have video conferencing information. And again, yours is going to look different depending on the institution that you're with. You can report problems, you can access training portals, or at least our students at OCPS can. And then I think the Canvas materials that Eddie is specifically discussing, for example, for proposing a new idea, that is going to be either, if your admin is included in this help, it will live there in this help button, or you can actually access it from the community if your admin, if your like kind of root account hasn't added it into the global navigation. But you could probably just even jump on Google and type in like submit a new quiz proposal. I've been on that page. I love that page. And I frequently go back and see updates on it. But that is really how we make these changes. So the more vocal you are about what you need in order for this to realistically be the only kind of assessment platform we offer, the more likely it's going to happen. So if you see somebody who has made the same comment as you, feel free to comment again, but also feel free to like that person's comment so that our engineers can actually see that and say, wow, we have 117 likes on partial credit. We really need to get on that. So that's a really great way to stay active and actually have a voice in what changes, because especially for new quizzes, I feel like we are incredibly receptive to those ideas within what we can actually manage technologically. I'm going to also just jump into settings so you can kind of see some options as a teacher. Again, very similar settings, but it just feels and looks different than classic quizzes. So you can still shuffle your questions, you can still shuffle answers, you can do the one question at a time and give all of your students a heart attack like mine used to have. You can require that access code, set time limits. That's a great thing too, is you can give them hours and minutes specifically. You can also allow calculators if this is going to be more of like a math science where they need a calculator, but you don't want them to bring something in. You can do a basic, and what's really cool is you've got that scientific option as well. Allowing multiple attempts, really, really great. And what's so great about this, in my opinion, is you can choose which score to keep. Average them, highest, the latest, the most recent one they took. You can limit the attempts that they take. And then you can also require time periods between their attempts. So for example, for grammar for my students, if they scored below a certain amount, I did want them to retake it because my end goal was mastery of the topic. But I didn't want them to retake it that afternoon. I wanted them to come in and see me and actually sit down and work. So I may do a keep the highest score with 2 attempts. And then I can actually say, you need 2 days. I'm going to give you 2 days to study for this. But you can actually control that wait period, which I love. Additionally, you can restrict what the students can and cannot see. So if you have a quiz where there's an essay question or there is an upload question that you have to manually grade, I know we've all had it, right? The kids get their grade and they're like, what? I got a 6 out of 10? And you're like, but I still have to grade some things. Like, take a breath, you're fine. So you can actually restrict what the students can see, as far as you just want them to see the questions and the answers or nothing. So you can have them just see that they've submitted it, and that buys you some time where they don't see their scores. They can't share the questions or their answers with their classmates if you have them spread across the day or across the week. So it really does kind of, it gives it the feel of like you took the quiz almost like you would on paper and you stuck it in the folder, and now it's hands off until the teacher gives it back to you. So there's some really great kind of controls issues for how the students view their feedback as well. And then also I want to show you this moderate tool. So on the moderate tool, and I'm going to actually jump into the question or the quiz that I created that has student availability. And this is a really good point. If you notice, I jumped into the quiz, but it took me back to this initial page. This threw me the first few times that I was playing with this tool. You just need to go down and click save. And now it's going to load all of your questions again. So this is how you would actually edit the questions. It feels unnatural, but that's all you have to do is just click save. It'll populate your questions. And then you as the teacher can come in to moderate. And this was the question that we got earlier in terms of how can we see where the students are? So I have one attempt in progress. That was that Ron quiz that we did, right? So I can see, and I can see it hasn't been submitted. I can actually submit for him. So if you had a student whose computer timed out, their computer died, you were concerned may have been dishonest on their quiz, you can go ahead and submit it without causing a fuss or telling that student to close their computer. And then you can actually filter how you want to view the feedback. So I just want to look at my submitted quizzes. And then I can see out of one attempt, Bruce Banner got a 52.5. It took him 5 minutes. Whereas, Bruce Wayne got a 99 and it took him 16 minutes. So I can go in and view this information and I can actually, wrong button. I can actually load his quiz. And it will show me kind of what he chose and what the correct answers were. So I can view it as he would with the answers, which is great. And the other really, really wonderful thing that as a teacher who had like extended time testers or any sort of accommodations, IEPs, 504s, is this ability right here to actually build accommodations in. Now, what's fantastic is you have two different types of accommodations you can give. You can give the student themselves an accommodation that's going to stay with the student for every quiz in the future until you make any edits, which would have been just mind-bogglingly helpful in my classroom of not having to kind of remember who's got what and when. But if Bruce, for example, gets an IEP or 504 or extended time, I can come in here and I can actually either remove my time limit. I can give him the time multipliers to say he gets 100% extended time. I can multiply that time by 2. And this accommodation will stay with Bruce for all future quizzes until I go back in and I remove it. So there's nothing that you have to set up on every single quiz. What's also really great is if it is just a one quiz thing, say Bruce was just having a bad day. That 52.5 is really unlike him. He came in 5 minutes late. He'd gotten a phone call before that just like destroyed his day. If you just kind of want to throw him a little kind of nicety on this quiz alone, you can come over here to moderate, and this will either give him another attempt and it will only go to Bruce. Or I can just kind of give him some extra time. Oh, you were 5 minutes late for the quiz. You were a little frazzled, took you some time to get in there. Just going to give you 5 more minutes, right? So let's just throw that on. You're not done. Let's just give that to you. What's great about this moderate is this will only affect this quiz. So that's the most important thing to remember between the two is if you do it with the pencil under accommodations, it stays with the student. It's an accommodation. It's something more permanent, something that will be, a few weeks, if not the full year. This moderate is really more specific to this quiz for this student. So, Hermione just needs one more chance at it. That's fine. I can give her and only her that extra attempt, and she can go in and retake it. So I love those accommodations and that moderate option, as well as just how clean and nice this is. You'll notice it will, by the last name, alphabetize your results. So just as a heads up, if you're wondering first names, why they're all over the place, we're looking at the last names in terms of alphabetization. So I know that was a lot, and I know there's a lot of great things that you're probably really excited about. I know I'm looking at the clock going like, but I could go on, but I won't. So I'm going to pass it back to Eddie and just wanted to kind of just really quickly, actually, Eddie, before I pass it back to you, let me just jump in because I know we had this question.
Okay.
Wrong share.
Yeah, and I'm not going to let you off the hook that easy. We do have some questions that came in that I want to get to. This is just one that before you jump back in, I'm curious. Are Canvas Studio quizzes considered new quizzes? I believe so. But that's like kind of a weird question because I don't think they live in the same house. But they also kind of do some of similar things, and the icon is the same. So I don't know. It's kind of an odd question. Like, how would you answer that? I would say yes, but I think everybody would maybe have their own interpretation.
Are you ready for a grammar lesson on adjectives versus nouns? So that's kind of what it boils down to. It is a new quiz in the lowercase new quiz sense, in the fact that it is a new capability within Canvas, the same way that this quiz is a new quiz capability within Canvas. However, when we give it that proper noun, that capital N, when we're talking about new quizzes with a capital N, we're really talking about this quiz feature. When we're talking about new quizzes with a lowercase n, we're talking about studio quizzes and we're talking about new quizzes. So they live in that same lowercase kind of adjective new, but not necessarily in that proper noun capitalized new.
Hey, you're getting a mic drop moment in the comments right now. So boom with the accommodation. I did not know that difference, that it stayed with them. So huge accommodation feature inside quizzes. All right, we're gonna let you finish up, but then you're gonna answer a few questions too. So
happy to.
Go for it.
Just in terms of kind of making your life easier and streamlining the grading of new quizzes. When we look at how things are graded, you can see predominantly everything is going to be auto graded for you. So students should realistically be able to get a quiz score or something close to what their final quiz score will be automatically. The only things that really require you to manually grade are the logical things, right? The essay, right? We can't auto grade essays. And when we do, somebody let me know, because wow, what a world that will be. And then file uploads, you checking to make sure that what they actually submitted is correct. So these are the only two things that cannot have any auto grade capabilities. Now within the auto graded, you'll notice that I have some with asterisks and some without asterisks. These top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are going to be things that automatically, without you doing anything, will be auto graded for the point value that you set it at, whether it's 1.5 points, however you want to set up your grading scheme. Now, with categorization, matching, ordering, and multiple answers, these can auto grade. Some of them will be all or nothing though. And what I mean by that is if we are matching, like you saw with the office characters, and say I just missed one, it's going to automatically grade the whole thing incorrectly. Now that's something to definitely be aware of, something that you would then on the back end, if you chose to give partial credit, say you wanted to give them 2 of the 3 points, you would need to come in and just regrade that question for them. If you really are an all or nothing teacher, this doesn't affect you because it would be all or nothing. Also with the multiple answer, you can actually set up the multiple answer to grade how kind of like the AP or like kind of how the AP grades, where it will give them points for what they got correct, but then it will actually take off of a half of a point for anything that they marked as an answer that was incorrect. And then it will actually take off the full point for anything they missed. So it'll actually be taking points off of what they earned rather than out of the total points available. So just to be aware that if you're an all or nothing teacher, if you need to get it all right or all wrong, this doesn't necessarily affect you. But if you have matching or ordering or categorization and you're really hoping that, say you're having them do the alphabet and they get 24 out of the 26 wrong, you don't want that kindergartner getting a 0 out of 26, do you? You would just need to go back and kind of auto grade it. Now, I know that sounds like a headache, but that takes me to our next slide, which are our priority enhancements. So again, going back to Hilda, item banks at an account level, you'll see my little hearts are the ones I'm most excited about, but that item banking at an account level is something that's coming. We are going to be kind of working with engineers to integrate the new RCE, that new rich content editor, which should allow you to record into any of like the rich content editing options when you're making that quiz, which will be a game changer again for accommodations. If you have students who need things read aloud. We also migration tooling with quizzes and quiz banks. That's another one coming. Printing new quizzes. I know that was a question that I saw on Facebook yesterday. We are going to be finding a way to make sure that printing happens. And then in terms of the grading, this is going to be fantastic. Partial credit. So like I was saying, or if they got, 24 of the 26 wrong, it's counting them all wrong. Hopefully in the very near future, because this is definitely one of our top 5 priorities right now, we're going to be engineering a way to actually give those questions with the asterisks. They're going to be an easier way so that partial credit can be automatically graded. So game changer, it's going to make things so much easier, but just to be aware, right, that currently my asterisked question types are going to possibly require me to go back and grade. But soon, one day, very soon, I hope, it'll actually auto grade for you again, streamlining your work. And that's it for priority enhancements. If you want any more information, I did make you some tiny URLs for kind of comparing classic and new quizzes, and then also taking you directly to our community page with our frequently asked questions on new quizzes.
I love the tiny URLs, and we do have some questions here. And I think this is one that typically is a misconception with new quizzes living in an external. It's an internal tool living in an external world. So being an external tool, I assume this won't be available in SpeedGrader. So if you want to touch upon that, I'll put these tiny URLs in the comment section.
Sure, I'm actually going to take you through that. So let me jump back into my course, take you to the grade book. You as a teacher will actually see it populate on your to-do list for grading. And then jump in. I'm going to view all sections. You can see all of their grades. And then we just need to define the quiz. There you go. It populated right in SpeedGrader for you. So whatever grade actually got entered into that new quiz got populated straight in, and then you can adjust as you see fit.
You know, it's interesting because I always like to just scan the questions really quick. And if we didn't get to your question, we'll try to hop in and do it on the comments section after the stream is over. But you answered so many in those last like 3 slides. I was like, oh, she answered this. Oh, she got that one. Okay, we're not going to ask that one. So you did a fantastic job. Everybody, give it up for Loryn Martini over in our Learning Services Department. Fantastic session. My goodness, just a complete round of applause for you.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you everyone for joining us today. As you can tell, it's something I get really excited about. So I'm happy to share that excitement with you.
It was so good. You've got a lot of thanks coming in, obviously on the chat. Very exciting stuff. They obviously love when you share some things that are kind of priorities that they can be looking forward to. That's the thing. Canvas listens, right? They do listen to their users, and they do fix and change things that they know will make your lives better. So we appreciate everyone being a part of today's live stream. Again, thanks to Loryn, and thanks for everybody that's commented or chatted. You do have the opportunity to watch these. All of these are automatically recorded. So as soon as the session is over, they're right available on the format stream on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn, wherever you're watching us from. So be looking for that, and then you can share that out if you'd like. We appreciate everybody being a part of today. Until next time, more great live streams coming up, and we've got a ton of ideas just from the comments that are coming in. Have a great night, everybody.
Wonderful. Thank you. Bye.